let's talk about the elephant in the room. Let's go ahead and discuss it. And that is, you're all thinking, and I would hope that it's on both sides. I doubt less about it if you're a supporter of Biden. But no matter what side that you're on, I think is people they're starting to sense that there's some funky business going on. And the funky business being with the voting and how they're being counted. This is an unusual year, considering that they were able to utilize the pandemic to have these sort of unorthodox ways of voting, right? So you have people putting in they wanted to make it so convenient, the mail-in voting and all of that, which opened up Pandora's box for this suggestion of corruption, right? That there would be something, depending on what way or what route the results went, people thought that there would be something that could happen potentially. And even Republicans, they were talking about this earlier on. They feared that this was something that could certainly happen. As the election extended, the longer let's say the Democrats had to funky and muddy the waters, funky up the vote tally and muddy up the waters. Now, they didn't do themselves any favor when last night, which is why we left for the most part, you have like Pennsylvania saying they were just going to stop counting the votes. I don't care who you are or what particular side you're on. That shit was bizarre. And I'm sitting here looking at this like there's absolutely no way that they could have been completely oblivious to the fact that if they did this, they knew that was going to ramp up those talks. They knew they were going to ramp up those. So we knew that if they did, I'm sitting there, as soon as that happened, and you can go watch I actually called it before it went to that route. I actually called it on set when I was like, you're sadly mistaken if you don't think that, considering how deep Trump derangement syndrome runs, you're sadly mistaken if you don't think that they would try to pull all stops if they could. Of course they could. And of course they will if they could. Now, I didn't think it was going to be something as like silly as, well, you're going to just stop voting. Oh, excuse me, stop counting. I was like, oh, that's a little bizarre. But they couldn't have been completely oblivious to the idea that, well, that was going to fuel, rather, this idea that there was some corruption taking place. Like I said, no matter what side you're on, you should have thought that was going to be funky. I was looking on Twitter as well, and you had the leftists in terms of Florida, which they lost, saying, and there was stories coming out of X amount of uncounted votes, mail-in ballots and stuff like that. And you saw some leftists saying, well, that was fishy, of course, because they lost. And that's what I knew was going to happen. It depended on which side was going to get the short end of the stick, where the mail-in voting thing was going to become more of a problem. Now, I anticipated that it would more so, which it did, come from the side of the Democrats, because a lot of those swing states, definitely in those high populated areas, they were going to have control. And if there was to be some funky business taking place, that was where it was going to take place. Again, I did not think that it was going to be something as crazy as, well, or unorthodox rather, as we're just going to stop voting. Florida, if I'm not mistaken, had the most counts of all of them, right, in terms of voting. Yet they were able to get all of their votes in, counted, ready to rock. And it's funny when you consider, historically speaking, the absolute debacle that has come from Florida. It's like they went from being this uber inefficient crap show, and then they were like, yeah, we know how to get this done. So they were able to get it done. They're on the East Coast as well. Had most votes, or more than what the others had. And they were able to get all of that situated that day, right? And when it came to instances like Michigan, or more so, and I think the most, I don't want to say reputable, that's the wrong term to use, but the instance that people are speaking to the most, and that is in Pennsylvania. They up and just said, yeah, we tired, bro. We gonna hang it up for the night. We'll revisit this. And then you have other states. Again, these just happen to be, because the race is so close, it's coming down to those states. It just so happens that that's the case. And then they're talking about as late as a few days. That's bizarre. So take from that whatever way that you may, but I don't think it's a stretch for anybody to look at this and say, okay, there's some funky business going on. Now, depending on if your guy won or lost, that's who you're going to think, that's going to determine your thought on the process. I will say, objectively speaking, that yes, it is odd that when it comes to these later counts and so forth, Biden seems to be benefiting the most as this election extends. Now, one could make the argument that, well, a lot of the mail-in voting and is just not getting counted, no matter how long they had it. Look, this is all weird to me, but never mind that. But the mail-in ballots and so forth are just getting counted, and therefore, because those are generally depicting more Biden supporters, then that's who's going to swing back in his favor. Again, it's just bad optics when it looks like, okay, you going into the night, people want to stop counting and what have you, and then Trump is ahead in those areas. It's just too much of a coincidence, guys, that it does end up swinging back the other way as it extends, and it's like, okay, we've stumbled across this box of ballots, and that's the sort of feeling that people get from it. So yeah, they have every, I don't want to say right, of course they have a right, but their suspicion is not necessarily unwarranted in the event that they say, man, it seems like there is some funky business going on. And yes, I do believe that this is going to go all the way to the Supreme Court. And yeah, obviously that doesn't bode well for the Democrats. So this could be a shit show that extends not just multiple weeks, but for multiple months. You know, just because if it goes to that point, and let's say that it gets all the way to the Supreme Court, and they are ultimately going to determine the winner and the loser, and maybe not directly, but in some instance, then the Democrats are, and let's say if that benefits because 6-3 Republicans, Democrats are going to push back as much as they can on that. So it's going to be a crap show. It's going to be an absolute crap show. But yeah, this is some fishy business. It's bad optics going on. And I don't think anybody is irrational by thinking that there is some rigging, there's some fixing going on in this election. Trump derangement syndrome is that bad to where, yes, people, posters, whoever, could be compromised. People that are counting ballots could be compromised. All of this is a very, very, very real thing. It's a very real thing. And we've seen enough examples of the crookedness to think that, okay, yeah, there's a potential. I'm not saying that it is happening. It's bad optics taking place. And I don't think anybody is irrational for saying, yeah, man, there's some fishy business going on when you consider definitely the whole, we're just going to stop counting, guys. I don't care who you are. That's weird, man. That is absolutely weird. Who you are. I am a non-voting anarchist. That shit is weird. You could be a Democrat and you have to acknowledge that that's bizarre that they just up and said, we're going to stop counting for right now. And in some instances, we're going to stop reporting live until Thursday and stuff. That shit's bizarre. You should have enough integrity, even as a Democrat, to say, that's weird. Definitely if you care so much about people's votes being counted. You have to understand the longer that this extends, the more room there is to be some fixing. And of course, the results are going to come under question. So even if you are a Biden supporter, them being as efficient, like as fast as they possibly can be, should be your priority. And again, I'm just looking at this objectively speaking. I don't win out of this. I don't win out of this. I've said, I am a non-voting anarchist. I don't win either way. I'm just looking at this objectively speaking and saying, yeah, man, this is a funky thing. But if nothing else, it does highlight, like I said, the year 2020 has been the year of the libertarian. And if anything, it highlights how inefficient the government is. And some people say, well, no, it highlights how corrupt they are. Why do you think they can't be both?